welcome back to our next episode of Healthspan Horizons. I am your host, Melissa, and I'm here today with two special guests. First of all, I have a second co-host today, Dr. Taylor Kuhn. He's subbing for Jasmine. He's based out of California, where it is nice and sunny. Unlike where I am, it is very snowy outside. And we have another special guest from Longevity Advocates, Marek. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, Taylor. It's great to be at your space.
Yes, thanks. We've been following your work on social media for the last couple of years, so I'm really excited to hear the intimate details about it today and kind of introduce our followers to you guys and what you've been doing and the video that you guys are creating and movie you're creating and everything like that. So I'm excited to jump in.
Me too. Just shoot the questions.
Yeah. Perfect. We'll get down and dirty right to it. So I wanted to start. Why don't you just give us, and for people that might not know you, like a background on who you are, what Longevity Advocates does, and kind of just as a jumping off point.
All right. So all my life I was in marketing, and I was, building brands and working for all the bad brands of the world, like Coca-Cola, Pizza Hut, all the alcohols, tobacco, and all the other bad guys. And then I went to an amazing conference, I think 8 years ago. It was called Extreme Future Technologies in Forecasting. And it was about the technologies that are going to change the world for better within the next 20, 30 years. And for me, this was this eureka moment. It's like you feel like, oh my God, it's like I can't do what I'm doing anymore. It's like I have to help the good guys and build a better world. So I decided that first I will go into longevity space. To make sure that I'm going to live at least, 200 years. And then I will go for space exploration. So this is my agenda. And okay, to answer your question fully, I think it was like 2 years ago, I decided, okay, now it's time for this longevity. And I decided to, use my knowledge for the good guys and become a longevity advocate and start helping the longevity industry to grow. And fortunately enough, my son was just finishing his high school. So I said, okay, let's do a gap year. Let's travel the world for 1 year and get to know all the longevity industry and everything that is out there, like a helicopter view on the longevity field, and show it to the people and inspire them to understand what longevity is, fall in love with it, and change their lives according to it, and then support the science so that it grows faster and that we can all enjoy it in our lifetimes, the longevity thing.
I have so many questions first. So I want to start with you traveling the world. Like, how did you were just like, hey, I think that we should just go travel, because you guys hit all the blue zones, correct?
We hit 3 blue zones, but actually for us, the most important was science. A lot of people there usually get excited about biohacking, and that's beautiful. I actually think that everybody is a biohacker if he or she takes care of their health and what they are eating and how they are exercising. But unfortunately, biohacking has a lot of bad rap, and when you go to these biohacking conferences, there's a lot of hoax out there. And so I decided, okay, let's go to really go and explore the science and meet the top scientists of the world and learn from them. But apart from that, okay, science is not everything. We know that lifestyle changes can do a lot of good for our longevity. So we also visited the blue zones, as you said, to talk to these elderly people and find out their secrets. And we also talked to, I call them natural biohackers. So it's like nutritionists and yoga masters and spiritual leaders. Like everything they do is also affecting our health and our longevity. So I believe that when our series will be finally out, people will really get a broad view on what's out there in the longevity field.
That's really great. And I'm curious, as you were kind of crafting all of your travel experience, all of your background, and funneling in from wanting to make sure that the biohacking that you were advocating for was really research based, evidence based, and could kind of help. I think, if I understand one of the initiatives, expand blue zones around the world. As you were building Beyond Time, how did all of that kind of culminate into the goals and the progress that you've been making that we're all so excited to be watching?
You know, fortunately enough, before setting on a journey, I researched a lot and I built a longevity map. And actually, if you go to my page, there you can find it. And there, I divided the longevity field into three spaces. The first one is the longevity basics, and these are the things that everybody can do now. Then there was the biohacking upgrades. So this is like next level thing that you already need to go to these longevity clinics, use medications and psychedelics and a lot of other things. And then the third space is radical life extension tools. And this is the next level thing. I will not say shit. And and this is like what we can do and what the science will be able to do so that we can get another 20, 30, 50 or 100 years. So we had this longevity map, and then we started traveling and we were filling in the blanks and just going from one place to another. And we were fortunate enough that because we were traveling as a family, father and son, so everybody was treating us as a family. So all these very serious scientists suddenly were super warm to us, and they were inviting us to their homes, to their universities, to their companies. Some of them, like Liz Parrish, we visited for a week at her house in Seattle, or with the scientists in Chile, we went for adventure to Atacama Desert, or with Eric Verdun from Back Institute, we went racing. So that was amazing in all of that. And it was just flowing.
Oh my gosh, I'm super impressed. First of all, I was going to ask you, one of my questions was going to be like, how did you find integrating with these scientists and stuff? But you kind of answered that for me, of having that in with your family to be able to go and hang out with them in a much different setting than the average person, as in myself, normally would. So, so what? I mean, out of curiosity, personal favorite, what was your favorite experience or place that you were in the year that you guys were traveling? Or if you don't have one, you can give a couple, but.
Yeah, I will give a couple. So first I will start with adventures. So actually, even though it's more about longevity, but adventures also give us, energy for our longevity. So 4 places were special. The first one, it's New Zealand, and New Zealand is amazing for the nature. It's like every 20 minutes you want to stop and just, wow, that is beautiful. It's just amazingly beautiful, and you feel such gratitude and awe for everything. And the funny thing is that even though it's so beautiful and so many beautiful places for hikes, I think that New Zealand has the biggest percentage of people who are obese. And that was pretty surprising. But anyway, we loved it. I even got a tattoo from Maori tattoo artist, and that was very special, but I can talk about that later. So New Zealand was the first one. Japan was second. Like it's just a different world. Like the culture and Okinawa, where is the blue zone, is totally different than the rest of Japan. And it was just beautiful. And at the beginning, we planned to stay in Japan just for a week, but we stayed for a month. And surprisingly, we thought that Japan will be one of the most expensive countries on our trip, and it wasn't. It was cheaper than Europe and the US. So that's a good thing. And the third one was Rapa Nui. So Rapa Nui is the Easter Island, and you have to fly to Chile, Santiago, and then still 6 hours into the middle of the ocean, and that's the only way how to get to Rapa Nui. So it's like the end of the world. And it was amazing for its energy. I think like for the first 3-4 days, my heart was in my throat, and it was just so overwhelming from these Moai statues and the volcanoes and the nature. It was just beautiful. And of course, Rapa Nui is the birthplace of rapamycin, which is possibly one of the wonder drugs of longevity. So that was one of the reasons we came there. And number 4, to finish my monologue, number 4 was Bali. I visited Bali a lot of times before. It was the first time I was there with my son. So Bali is amazing for its spirituality, and it's not fake. Like, really, people live there, like, with these temples around, and they really feel into this spirituality. And I believe that it's for sure helping them with their longevity. It's just the mindfulness, the mindset that we get there. It's just beyond amazing. And my son loved that too. So it was a good place on our journey. So these places were special for experiences. But if you ask me what was special for longevity science, this would be a totally different answer.
Well, that's such a beautiful answer, and I'm already making plans when my kids get older to do something similar. I remember New Zealand was like the land of rainbows, and I've got this beautiful panoramic of the sun rising over the ocean and a rainbow over the mountains. But one
It's
of the
just
things I'm
beyond
hearing,
amazing.
it's absolutely stunning. And one of the things that I hear you bringing up, when I was at Harvard, we had a collaboration with Yale where we were researching centenarians, people who lived to be older than 100, and we've been tracking them for many years. And one of the things we were looking at was, to your point, things about religion, things about spirituality, things about kind of personality, and not just the things we do in terms of biohacking and eating and sleeping for our bodies, but also mental well-being. And what we found was that when people decreased in their openness to experience, so when they went from what you just described, wanting to go out into the world, explore, try new things, when that openness decreased, that predicted death in the next 2 years.
Yeah,
And we
I can
blown
imagine.
away by the importance of that, not physiological, but mental, emotional stance with terms of longevity. So I would love to hear your answer about travel with regards to longevity, and I'm curious if you have more to say as well about not only the body portion of longevity that you learned from your travels, but also some of the mental, emotional, spiritual things as well.
It's funny you mentioned Harvard, because I think 2 or 3 weeks ago we were there at the Biomarkers conference, and we also met with Robert Waldinger, and he is the PI of this longest, let's call it, happiness study in Harvard. I think it's already ongoing for over 80 years, and of course they found out and proven that if you're more happy and you have rich social emotional life, then you're also living longer. So that's definitely true, and I think it's even more research than it is on the blue zones. But actually, just please limit me when I'm answering, because I could be talking for hours. I will just.
That's what we want. We want to hear from you. They don't want to hear from us. So
just one more thing. When we were visiting Sardinia, which is one of the blue zones, and we went to this centenarian village, and we were just talking to some elderly people, like 90, 100, sitting on the streets and watching the pedestrians going. And I asked one of them, I think he was 92, if you'd like to live to 200 or 300. And he was, if I will feel as strong as I feel now, I want to live 200. So a lot of people at the 90s, they would say, no, I want to die already. And he was like, hey, I feel amazing. I want it to last. And in general, as we were traveling, I think that I can say that the mindset is the most important thing for longevity. I know some people say it's exercise and it's nutrition and so on, but actually, if you don't have the right mindset and you don't want to live, then you just die. And a lot of people, they're not happy with their lives. They don't love themselves. They don't love the world around them. And for them, if you tell them that they're going to live 50 years more, they're terrified. And especially the young people, they are saying, oh no, like 80 is enough. Well, why should I live so long? But then I usually tell them my story, and how I had a very strong PTSD from my childhood. And actually only 5 or 6 years ago, I did MDMA-induced therapy, which is the best one for trauma and PTSD. And since I did that, I'm happy every day, and I enjoy every moment of my life. So why end it if it's so beautiful? And I think that's for sure impacting our longevity. And that's And there is a lot of science behind that. Actually, if you have ongoing traumas and depression, that's constant stress on your body, on your mind, and on your heart, and that is causing constant inflammations. And inflammations cause aging. So actually, it's not just about feeling good; it's about even our cells in our body.
I think I firmly agree with that. I mean, this is just a personal example, but I have like grandparents, they divorced probably 25 years ago, and they both took very different directions with how they proceeded with aging. And my grandma on one side, she's the CEO of a company still. She's 85. She's running around owning this in working 8 to 5. My grandpa passed away a couple of years ago because he kind of like became a little bit of a hermit, sat on Facebook a lot and things like that. And even though they're same age, their approach to the later parts of their life were so different that it really exemplified to me that like, no, getting out and socializing with other people matters, but also the mindset that you have of what you're doing makes such a huge difference on like the decline that you have while you're aging. And that's been a huge testament to me working in this field of being like, there's more to it, like you said, than just exercising and going to bed and getting 8 hours of sleep. It's like there's so much of the mental aspect of it that we don't necessarily take into account right off the bat, but it's so important for later in life, especially, I feel like.
And there is one more thing. If you have the right mindset, then you also have the will and the power to prioritize your wellness over your convenience. Because a lot of people just do whatever is convenient. They take a hamburger because it's faster and it's cheaper instead of cooking something at home. They watch TV instead of going for a walk, and so on and so on. And you have the right longevity mindset. You just prioritize yourself, and not just your body, but your heart and your mind at the same. And actually, when my friends ask me, or a lot of people, so what's the main thing for the longevity that we can do now? I usually answer, treat your mind, heart, and body as a temple and not as a trash bin. And I think that just summarizes it all, like all the blue zones and everything that we can do now easily. And this will give us another 30 years of healthy life. So it's pretty easy. You just have to be convinced and start doing that.
I love that. And I'm so grateful that we live in a time when there's so much research coming out really backing that relationship and how important it is. I mean, they've even shown that whether or not you respond to chemo treatments for cancer is mediated by, whether or not you're anxious and depressed, in which case it's less likely to be helpful, or you're able to maintain a positive mental well-being, in which case you're more likely to respond to the treatment. I think you're so right. Now, if that's your kind of core, here's what you should do. I'm curious, from your travels, did you learn things that we shouldn't do, or things that are misconceptions that people carry?
Mm. You know, there are a lot of don'ts, and we know most of them. It's like don't drink alcohol, don't smoke cigarettes. It's like, and the data are so huge. I think I was checking that if you're an alcoholic, you lose 15 to 20 years of your healthy life. If you're an active smoker, you lose 10 to 15 years. If you're an active sugar eater, you lose 9 to 16 years, because it's not just about diabetes. It's also about cancers that are appearing and a lot of other stuff. So these are the main don'ts, of course. But on the other thing, as I was going through the transcripts of the interviews that we did during the journey, I remember my conversation with Oliver Zollman. Oliver Zollman is the main doctor of Brian Johnson. And actually, he said that if you have a depression, it's almost as harmful as smoking 20 cigarettes a day. And that was staggering.
Wow. That's shocking to me.
I work with a neurologist, and he and I were talking. We both wore continuous glucose monitors for a little while. Neither of us are diabetic. We just wanted to kind of understand more. And we both were blown away to learn independently that more than anything we ate, and I have a bad habit of really enjoying like Dr. Pepper, dark sodas, more than anything that we had, stress spiked our glucose far more than anything that we ate. It was profound and terrifying.
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
So for sure, let's live in Zen and take care of our mind. And fortunately, we have a lot of tools for that. And one of the best ones are psychedelics, and I'm happy that they are being legalized all over the world, step by step. Like as I said, I did MDMA-induced therapy, and this changed my life completely. And on our quest, when we were in Peru, I also did San Pedro ceremony with a local healer, and that was beautiful and amazing. And I believe there's a lot of science backing that up, and a few other ceremonies that I did on the way. And I think that's beautiful, and that should be always included as a part of the longevity map.
Yeah, we went to a psychedelics and longevity conference in Miami last
2 years
October.
ago.
So almost, well, yes. Were you guys there too? Did we
No,
cross paths
no.
unintentionally?
But I know that Max Unfried was there, and Aubrey de Grey, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and honestly, I am not super familiar with psychedelics. It's not an area of my expertise, but my CEO, Jasmine, loves it, and she is very a big proponent of using it in terms of like therapy. And there's just not a whole ton of research at this moment, like really advocating for it. But it seems to be the research that's done is so helpful and so beneficial, but it has such a stigma attached to it that it's like we're just not quite there yet. So I'm so interested to see how it progresses in the next several years with more and more research being done on it, because it seemed very promising when we were at the conference of all of these doctors coming forward with like, this is what we found. This is how it's helped mental health. This has helped people and like be able to fully make a recovery from PTSD and things like that, right?
Psychedelics are amazing, and they just should be a regular part of our, taking care of ourselves. And also, as we talked about the mindset, like you hear more and more about suicides all over the world, especially in Asia, like in Japan, in Singapore. And when we were there were people just committing suicides, and you could read about them just because of the pressure they get. And also, I talked to Nicole Gibson, who was in Melbourne, and she said that suicide is one of the leading causes of death in Australia. And that is also a surprising fact about Australia, because, that's a beautiful, vast country and only 25 million people on this land. So it's super beautiful. But there's a lot of depression, and there are like a couple of reasons. First of all, a lot of people that are there, they are detached from their families, and that takes a toll, because they travel from Europe or from other parts of the world to Australia, and nobody wants to visit them anymore because it's so far away. But the other thing is that there was a huge genocide on Aboriginal people, and this gives a huge pressure both on the Aboriginal people, who of course are traumatized by the genocide made on them, but also the white guys. They feel the pressure, of their grandparents or great grandparents just committing the genocide on the local people, and that gives a lot of depression in the society, and that's a huge problem. Surprisingly, it's such a beautiful land.
That does surprise me, to be honest. I just assume that because it's warm and, and sunny there, that it would be much higher than a place like Canada, where it's negative 20 outside and
Canada is
dark for so long.
Canada is beautiful.
It is. I live close to Banff, so it is beautiful. Just a little brisk. Just a little brisk. Yeah. Okay, Marek, I wanted to hear. Well, I have two things. Oh my gosh, we're already at 25 minutes, but I feel like I could go for so much longer. So, you've briefly mentioned the clinicians and the researchers that you've been interviewing. I know that you've met with a ton of them. So, first of all, how did you go about getting them to talk to you, or did you have a personal favorite of anybody that you interviewed and their takeaways from meeting with them?
So I have a lot of favorites. But I will start with one of the last professors we interviewed, so Professor George Church. and he is the hardest to get. Like he never travels; he just stays at Harvard in Boston, and even the organizers of the conference, they were not sure if he will go down to give a speech on the conference because he's just not going out to people so much.
Yeah.
But he came down, and then we invited him to talk with us, and we were talking, I think, for 2 hours, and he was super friendly, like a grandpa you want to have. And so I interviewed him, my son interviewed him, and I think he's like number one person in the longevity field. You know, he's working on these radical life extension tools. Either it's genetics or partial epigenetic reprogramming. So he's not playing the soft toys, let's call it, that, you know, just can a little bit prolong our lifespans. But he's working on the big breakthroughs so that we can get another 50 or 100 years. And I love that. You know, I'm also one of the crazy ones that I'd love to live at least 500 years because there are so many amazing things to do in the world. And as we were talking to George, I told him that, you know, I used to tell my son, who is 18 now, that when he will be in his 30s, we're going to look like brothers. And I asked George if it's going to be possible. And he said, I think it's very probable that you can get there. And of course, you know, he said, I hope that at the beginning we will just take care of what's inside of you, not how you look. But actually, this possibility is very probable. And I love that because I definitely want to look like I'm 35 all my life and not a day older. So there was George Church. But we also spent a lot of time with Liz Parrish, who is also working with George Church. And as I said, she invited us over to Seattle to her house and her family. So we talked a lot about gene therapies. And actually, I'm thinking about doing one of them on myself in the coming months, even though it's, you know, a lot of people say it's risky and that I shouldn't do it. But actually, George Church gave me good hints because I asked him, okay, if he would do it, this follistatin gene therapy or clothotherapy, and he said that he would do it only as a part of a clinical trial, because then you can be sure that everything is done by the book. And the other thing is that you are giving something to the science. And I love that answer. So actually, he said that next year there is going to be a big clinical trial on clothotherapy. So I want to sign up, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed so that they don't get me the placebo.
So how many people were you able to interview in total?
I think it's over 100. So quite a lot. And yeah, it's a really hard job to choose you know, small parts from every interview into our movie. And actually we're also going to publish a book, and they told me, okay, give us 20 interviews. And I'm like no way, like at least 40. I have to show everything, and 20 is not enough. So yes, there were a lot of amazing people, amazing scientists, and most of them became really good friends with us. And like you said, you asked at the beginning, how did we meet all of them? So at the beginning, before our quest, I saw that there is this amazing conference, Longevity Summit Dublin in Ireland. So I called the organizers and said, hey, I'm going on a quest for longevity with my son. We're going to make a movie about it, and just invite us over. And they invited us over. They gave us, you know, a special room where we could, you know, put all our cameras and lights and everything. But still, we came to Dublin, and nobody knew us. So I remember, and I laughed about it with Andrea Meyer recently in Boston, because I approached her and she said, why should I talk to you? Who are you? and she was very on a distance, like she knows how to be like that. And after that, you know, she went to the room with me, and she thought actually that we will be filming with an iPhone somewhere in the corridor. And then she entered the room, and there were like 5 cameras, a lot of lights, and everything was beautiful. And she said, okay, so this is professional. And And then she became one of the best friends. And actually, when she was organizing a conference in Singapore in February this year, we got one room from the conference from me and the videographer, and my son was living in Andreas and her husband's apartment. So this shows how close friends we became. But there were more of these. It's like Brian Kennedy. We met him not just in Ireland, but then in Shanghai and in Boston, and of course in Singapore 2 times at least. So all of them were becoming closer and closer to us, and that was amazing.
I'm super impressed, to be honest with you, because I agree. Like your experience with Andrea Meyer, I feel like is kind of a general researcher kind of persona, especially when you're at a conference and you're presenting and things like that. It's like a little bit more standoffish just because you're busy and you're doing things all the time. So I'm impressed you got 100 people out of that. That's
and like all of them were amazing. And I'm not speaking about the scientists, but as I said, like spiritual leaders, the monks on Bali, they were also very inspirational, and talking about the purpose and also how to move your body, and that yoga, it's not just about actually physical exercise, it's more about the mind and the heart. And my son loved that. Like actually, like we didn't speak about my son, but as I was this pioneer that was already accustomed to the longevity field, like he was a seeker. He was just learning about all that for the first time. Like before that, I was telling him things about longevity, but how it's dad talking. I remember the funny thing was when we were in Dublin, and one of the scientists, I will not say who, but one of the top scientists, he said, "Oh, I'm so tired. We had a huge MDMA party yesterday." And my son was like, "So you were also taking MDMA? So it was not just my father taking that?" I think, "Why?" And so on. And he was like, "Okay, so so it was just so funny." And a lot of them were wasted up at this party.
If I've learned anything about longevity experts, it's that the ability for them to power through a night out and then show up at 8 a.m. the next day is incredibly impressive to me. So
yeah, but not only that, also like they just traveled so much from one conference to another. And I asked Brian or Andrea or Lise, like, how do you do that? Like, why you're still alive? And they say, we just keep our routines, we exercise, and on the planes we work, and so on. But it's like, at least Brian should take like 6 months off and just go on a nice beach and just relax. I think we owe it to them. Like they need to relax from time to time because we want them to stay with us and grow this longevity science, for the next 100 years, and not just get tired after the next few years.
Agreed. And speaking of which, as you've done all these interviews, you have amassed all this knowledge, you've begun to share it with the world. You mentioned the movie, the book. I'm curious, kind of, how are all those things coming, and what's next?
So now we are talking to the best media platforms and choosing which one to go with, and we have our chosen one that we're now negotiating, and I hope we're going to sign an agreement at the beginning of the next year. And I'm super excited because it's not just about me and my son, it's about just growing the longevity field. Because, now the longevity field is just maybe 100,000 people around the world. And I think it's probably less than that. Maybe it's tenth of thousands. And it's not enough. Like we need to start a movement, So I decided that we don't want to make another scientific movie that would be for geeks. I'm a geek, but most of people are not geeks. So we need to get to the masses and inspire hundreds of millions of people to go on the path of longevity and support it. So this idea about traveling around the world, father and son, so it's very emotional and it's easy to watch and it's easy to identify with for a lot of people, because there are so many parents out there, and even teenagers and so on. So we want to, show them the journey and then give the science to the backdoor of the brains. So I think this is like a hack, how to get to these hundreds of millions of people. And then when we will get to them and make them fall in love with longevity and support the longevity science and go bang to the governments and institutions, we want that. We want to live longer, like 100 is not enough. Then we can really start a movement. And recently I was speaking with Stephanie Dano, like she's running Lifespan IO, and now working with the Sense Foundation. I know they have a new name, but I just don't remember. And she asked me, so did you identify who really started the movement? Was it Aubrey? Was it someone else? And I said, hey, the movement is not there yet. It's just at the beginning. We need to get to hundreds of millions. Then we can start a movement. And it's exciting, because I believe that when the movie will be finally out, and of course, when we negotiate with the network, we talk about the global reach and getting to people in all the countries around the world, then we will be able to inspire so many people and really change their lives for better. And what better thing can be there, than to inspire other people to change the world for better. So I'm pretty excited about all that. So yes, editing the movie, doing the book, and in the meantime, probably getting to some more conferences to get some more knowledge. But actually, I'm already excited about the second movie that I want to do. And this will be about implementation of everything that we've learned. So the first movie was about getting to know, the longevity field from the helicopter view and according to our longevity map. But in the second one, I want to gather, 5 more people from around the world, probably some celebrities to get a bigger reach, and do health, performance, and joy optimization. So during this whole year, it will also be a 1-year project. I want to sign up with the best longevity clinics, sports centers, extreme sports centers, nutrition centers, meditation centers, and so on. And these 5 people just go on a regimen and just change their lives over this 1-year period. And I want to choose probably 12 top scientists from the ones that I met on the journey. And they would be like the management board for all these 5 people. At the end, these 5 persons will decide what they want to do, but they will have this top advisory board. So it will be like Brian Johnson project, just much bigger and on an open protocol. So I'd like the data to be open for all the scientists all over the world, so that they can study it and build science on it.
Love that. Love the open source component of that. That's and the power of creating a movement and all of these funnels of research and emotional mental well-being, and the whole platform that you're putting together is really impressive, really beautiful.
Thank you.
So do you have an estimated time of when we can expect your movie and or books and things to happen? Are you hoping for 2025 or?
So the agenda is now that the movie should be ready at the end of May, but then it depends on the platforms when they will be ready to publish it. So probably it will be September, because usually don't publish things like that during the summertime. But the book might be out before the summer. So of course it will be connected with the movie somehow. And that's it. And then I think the craziness will start, and I can't wait for that. And I told you the second movie, I already have in my head the third movie that could be about the younger generation, and maybe my son doing a biohacking club in Amsterdam where he just started to study. And maybe the next movie will be even about me getting a wife and 2 little kids and traveling with them and showing longevity from the birth till to getting a little bit older.
You'll just have your own reality TV show, basically, of how to live longer and better.
I don't like the word reality show. Like, I wouldn't like to. Yeah. I would call it a lifestyle documentary because as I'm working with the team, even when we are choosing the music, I say it has to be the music, so it doesn't feel like a documentary. It must feel like the best, blockbuster. And if I hear any music that is reminding me of a documentary, just cross it out. I don't want that. It has to have the feeling, so it's lifestyle, so it's inspirational for people, and they really want to watch it like the best series in the world.
I love that. So you kind of touched on it, but I was going to ask like what your son is doing now, or if he had any. I mean, to be honest with you, I could never imagine traveling for a year with either one of my parents. So I give you guys mad props. Even I love my immediate family and my husband and kids and stuff, but that's a long time to be together. Like, how was that dynamic for you guys? And or what's he doing now? Did he love it enough that he's going to pursue it as an adult? Or
so it was hard. I would say it was very hard. So it was like a sinusoidal journey, ups and downs. And of course, like in general, that was amazing, beyond amazing. But we had our tough times, like sleeping in one room, and spending 24 hours a day for a year. That's a lot.
Yes, it is.
So we had to find our ways, how to resolve problems. And at the beginning, like when we had a tension, I was like, okay, let's sit down, let's talk it through. We have to spend another 8 or 10 months together. We have to resolve it. But that was tiresome. It's like usually waiting to the evening or the next morning to sit down. And I was like thinking all the time, it's my fault. I'm like a mirror to him, or he's like a mirror to me, and so on, like self-doubting myself. And what I observed after some time is that when we had a tension, and I was having this Woody Allen in my head, my son usually after 15 minutes was like happening, like he was behaving like nothing happened. And he had a huge resilience. And like he didn't give a fuck. I'm sorry for a big word. But so I started doing the same. And that was amazing. I think I got an amazing knowledge for my future relationships. It's like you don't have to discuss everything. Just both sides have good intentions to just go on with your life. And if there is something really important, okay, look, talk it through, but not everything. Just fuck it. Like just go with the flow. And I think that saved our journey. And that was amazing. But I think 4 times we were thinking, okay, it's enough. I was telling my son, go home, maybe come back after 2 months. And he was, Dad, I don't want to go. You need space. I don't need space. And that was funny. So it was not just me teaching my son, but it was also my son teaching me. So that was beautiful.
Yep. I honestly, it's crazy how kids are like that. I think it's like just a general. My kids are like that as well. They'll be super mad about something, and then you just shift the conversation, and then all of a sudden they're over it, and you're like, "Well, I'm not over it. You were so obnoxious. I need a little bit of time to like recover from that." So I get it. So is he?
Try that because after some time I was like getting over in 3 minutes, and my son was not getting over. He was like, "Why did you get over that?"
That's going to be my takeaway.
Then it becomes like today. A competition.
Yeah. Oh, Taylor, I think you might be muted, or if you're maybe not.
So you turned the tables on.
Yeah. Oh, so my son is now in Amsterdam. He started studying there, design and architecture, and he spent a lot of time on taking care of his body. Like we had a call 2 days ago, and I asked him, "Hey, so you only have like 2 days of courses during the week?" He said, "Yes, but Dad, it takes so much time to take care of yourself." He says, like 2 times I'm going for basketball, 2 times a week I'm going for Pilates, 2 times I'm going for climbing. Then I'm cooking for myself, like specially prepared meals 4 times a day. It takes a lot of time, Dad.
And tell him to just wait till he gets a little bit older and things start layering on top of that.
Yeah, but
Right.
actually he's happy, and you ask if it's anyhow connected with our longevity trip. I'm sure it will be. Actually, in architecture there is also this notion to go into creating these longevity cities or longevity hubs and so on. So you build the whole blocks so that they are designed so people walk more, so that they climb the trees, that so that they climb the escalier stairs. Sorry, a lot of languages in my head. And that they start taking care of each other, and so on and so on. And actually, when we were in Singapore, Andrea Meyer connected Alec with a local architect who is designing things for longevity, and they had a long chat. So yeah, there are a lot of possibilities and a lot of longevity cities that are going to be built in the future.
Yeah, Arcia, like Jasmine, has been to, or she's going to Vitalia at the end of this, or the beginning of June, I think in January. So I think the prospect for longevity cities, and even just the ability, like you said, to walk more and to have access to fresh food and in a hub like that, I think is going to be very interesting to see in hopefully the next few years as they become a little bit more popular and accessible.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, and I'm proud of him, but I'm proud of him. He survived with me. I survived with him, but he also became an amazing videographer during this quest, because most of the time we were just filming by ourselves, and he was the main guy, and I was helping him. Like actually, I wanted him to have something where he's better than me, because it's sometimes with the kids, they have this problem that their parents are better in everything. So he's much better in filming than I am, for sure. And then like 25% of the time we had an extra videographer that was joining us, my friend, and he was joining us for the conferences or for some big longevity hubs. And now at the end, as we were traveling, we also had another videographer, so we could have more shots, emotional ones, close-ups on hands or gestures. So it's also important for the movies to make a beautiful glue for all this knowledge that we will be sharing.
I love that. Well, I'm super excited to see it and to see what you guys are doing in the next couple of years. We have, oh my gosh, we're at 47 minutes already, so we have to wrap it up. I have one last question for you, which is, what are you most excited to see happen in the longevity field, or that you see happening right now in terms of research or development or anything that piques your interest?
Like, I'm a huge fan of radical life extension tools, so I'm especially excited about genetics and partial epigenetic reprogramming. Like, I think it's going to move the needle beyond 120 years, which is pretty important for me. And actually, this can help us rejuvenate so that I can look like my son's brother when he's 35 or something. So that's something I really keep my fingers crossed for. And actually, there are also like a lot of small things that now are growing and get a lot of attention, like these GLP-1s and GIPs, which happen to be pretty good for longevity, not just for losing weight. And actually, I'm also going to test one of them in the coming months and see how it's going. And I especially love the connection that I think it's the company called biohacking is doing. They have a drug that is based on GLP-1, but they also are having now in clinical trials an exercise mimicking drug. So actually,
yes, I've heard about that.
Take a pill and you get the profits of exercising. And of course, it's not that you just eat hamburgers, drink soda, and sit on a couch and GLP-1 and exercise mimicking drug. But I think it's going to help a lot of people, especially the elderly who cannot move that much. So it will be like a booster for them. So it's just an example, but I think there will be more and more exciting things coming out. in the next year, and I'm looking forward to that. And of course, I will be looking for all the crazy stuff that is going to appear. And one of the craziest things that I've heard of, and this is a little bit terrifying, it's somebody called it cloning. And of course, when I hear cloning, it's like the worst nightmare. I hated it in the science fiction movies, even though I'm a big fan. But actually, I've heard that the scientists in Israel, they are, let's call it, growing new sleeves for us. So it's like bodies without brains that are our copies. And when I don't call it cloning, it's pretty exciting. Because I can imagine that in the future, I don't know, maybe in 50 years, 100 years, or maybe earlier, we will be somehow transferring our consciousness to the new bodies that we will grow in the printer. So I think it's exciting. Let's watch it develop. I just hope they will not be doing clones with the minds, because that would be just the worst thing ever.
The book and show Altered Carbon, where we switch sleeves.
I love it.
But it also brought up some pretty interesting ethical issues as well. But fascinating future.
Yeah, I love Altered Carbon. I love it. I think like if I could change my sleeves, I'm all up for that. Like I think that's cool future. I don't know if it will be in the form of stacks as we switch our consciousness from one sleeve to another, but that seems exciting. It still seems like science fiction, but actually, science fiction is all around us, so why not?
I like to say science is how we learn to do magic.
Exactly.
I love your take on this, because we ask everybody the same question at the end of like, what do you want to do? Do you want to live healthier? Do you just want to extend your health span? And some people say, no, I want like my brain chip implanted into something else. Some people will just be like, no, I just want to like feel like I'm 35 when I'm like 70. And so we have such a range of guests on here in terms of what their goal is with longevity. So I love hearing that. I have not actually read the book or seen the movie, but I guess I need to put it on my list to be a little bit more sci-fi.
Do it. It's like usually when people ask me how long I want to live, I say at least 500, but I'm hoping for much more. It's like there are so many amazing things to do, and at one point I'd love to study biotechnology or asteroid mining. Why not? So many opportunities.
And honestly, compared to 200 years ago, our life right now would be very science fiction in comparison to what it was. So, and we really have no concept of something that could be just standard practice in 50, 100 years from now that we now think is science fiction. So there's so much. So, all right, Marek, we got to wrap it up. So where can people find you if they want to go and follow along with what you're doing for the next several years?
I set up my website. It's longevityadvocate.com. I didn't update it much recently because I was traveling, but I promise I will. But there, everybody can find this longevity map. And I think it's an amazing tool because, you just take this longevity map and do everything you can do from that. And just make sure you're going to be healthy and vibrant for another 20, 30 years. And in the meantime, I'm sure the scientists will come up with new science that will give us another 30 or 50 years or more. So just follow the longevity map.
Love it. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Taylor. Thank you for being my snazzy guest host today. And we will see you guys next time on the next episode of Healthspan Horizons.
Yeah. See you. Thank you.